Okay, so
Okay.
go.
So just by way of kicking off, in the original call to do the ideation workshop, there's an agenda. And that formed in the first meeting, for sure, a structure that allowed us just to use the time wisely. But what I want to do just before I hand over to Raphael, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. The reason I'm doing this is, one, I'm a member of the RChain co-op, and two, I'm on the board. And we need to position RChain from an investment or support perspective, however you deem investment versus not investment, to make it more attractive. And one of the ways of doing that is to explain the benefits of RChain through the lens of different ideas that could be manifest as minimum viable products potentially. And so we sent out the call to the membership to participate in an ideation workshop in order to harvest the ideas on the basis that, hey, if anyone's going to know, it would be the members. And so we set up the first workshop, done the second. This is the third. Hoping this one in particular has the Chinese community ideas, of which I think there's 3. But for the moment, the floor, Raphael, with third-party content verification is yours.
Okay, so let's go. So I am going to share my screen all along. Share screen. We don't need that and that. So also, I always have this problem with the Zoom toolbar. So I am going to present my project for DApp ideation. So the name is very not catchy. So I called it third-party content verification using RChain and DAPI. Another name is quoting third-party content on websites. So I'm not going to go along the document. I have some slides, so it will be simpler to follow for everyone. So the main issue that I wanted to address is the issue of quoting third-party content on the web. So basically, content quoting is very much used in, for example, scientific papers, international organizations, blogs, any website that is related to news or stuff like that. There is a lot of third-party content sharing. For example, some government issued a law or a recommendation, and some press websites would quote it and comment on it. So this is an example. So how is quoting done right now on the web? So the basic obvious way of quoting a third-party website on any other website is copy and pasting some text. So this is an example. This is, for example, my blog, and I am quoting something from official.gov. So this is, of course, an official website. And I picked some part of a sentence or full sentences from this website, and I am copy and pasting it in my website. So what is the issue with this way of dealing with quoting? The first one is that there is absolutely no guarantee of authenticity. So in this rectangle, I can put anything I want, of course. And another thing is that Yes, so basically that's it. It can be changed to anything. So it's a very, very poor way of quoting third-party content. But the most part of quoting is done this way on the web today. So I just found an example in 30 seconds. So I went over to this web news website, and basically an example. Stinking co-founder of Phenom told TechCrunch. So basically, so this is not properly talking quoting, but you get the point. You might this sentence might be copied from another website. So then another way of quoting third party is using iframe tags. So iframe, basically, you're going, it's a HTML tag, and you're going to give it a source, your URL, and basically the whole content of another website will be loaded in your website. So you will have a window to another website, but it will be a full web page. So you cannot pick the content that you want to include. You have to include everything in your website. So of course, often it leads to poor design. So basically, user cannot really understand what's being displayed. Also, one issue is that content can change over time because when you copy and paste a string, it cannot change because you have it. But when you deal with dynamic resources like this one, content can change. So basically, you can quote something that change over time. So it might lose meaning if um, this website does not apply proper politics around updating stuff. And then, of course, the page can disappear from the web. So these are issues with iframe. The main point of those two way of quoting is that we cannot control what's on a web page, and the main issue is that any design can be imitated. I have another, for example, this is a tweet, so you might integrate this tweet in your website, but you can also imitate this design and basically put anything you want in there. So usurpate any account on Twitter or any website identity. So the key solution is that the browser must handle uh, those capabilities of quoting must be handled by the browser outside of the actual web page, because a web page can basically display anything. So it has to be dealt with by the browser. So I already presented DAPI in some other sessions, so the goal is not to present this project. The main point is that DAPI is a web browser, and it includes a name system that is on the RChain blockchain. So basically, anyone can purchase a name and attach a public key to it. Public key is synonym of digital identity. And it is also a network for files and web application distributions, and it is decentralized. So what form would it take? So basically, as I said, we cannot control what's on a web page. So DAPI is a browser that acts just like a browser. So basically, so will it work? Maybe the network is currently down, but you have tabs, and any website can be loaded in an isolated context. So it's just like a legacy browser. So basically, the websites can display anything inside DAPI as well as inside legacy browsers. So the main issue would be that any website can quote anything he wants, but can also call a specific API that will be connected to the DAPI browser, and the DAPI browser will be able to verify any string against any cryptographic signature that is given to it. So basically, in a website, there might be a quote from official.gov, and so this is, I'm going to get back to my document so you get the point. And when the button is clicked, there would be some JavaScript function that is available in the context. And basically, you can ask DAPI to display a third-party content verification pop-up. So you will tell it the name, official.gov. You would provide the signature and also the content that must be verified against this signature. And the result would be that you have a pop-up. So this pop-up must include some UI, making sure that it's a browser pop-up and not a pop-up coming from the website itself, within the website. And basically, it would tell you, okay, the content that was provided has been verified against the public key that is associated with official.gov in the DAPI name system. So, so this is it. What does this imply from a publishing perspective? So, as I have written, a requirement is that third-party website administrators like official.gov must provide easy access to resources in plain text and with associated cryptographic signature. Of course, one cannot generate a signature that will be valid. It is official.gov that must, for example, each time it publishes an article, it must provide a text format article with the signature. So this can be uploaded to the blockchain very easily. And this leads us to the last slide. So what are the advantages of such a mechanism? The first one is that relying on cryptographic signatures instead of dependency for IP servers make the validity of content verification valid forever, or at least as long as the name is associated with the same cryptographic identity. So when you use Iframe, for example, as I said, the content may change. And when you use copy and paste, you might fool the user with a fake quoting. So basically, this feature would rely on cryptographic signature. So it is forever valid. Also, official.gov, for example, might upload the text plus signature on the blockchain. So the file would be here forever because it's uploaded on a persistent storage platform like RChain. And also, it is independent of the DNS system. So, for example, in the example with Iframe, you have dependency for the DNS system. So if your domain gets kicked off, Iframe does not work anymore. So with this system, it uses the decentralized DAPI name system. So therefore, it is very much harder for your website or for your digital identity to disappear. So the goals for this is to provide trustless authenticity guarantees, permanently valid verification mechanism, and greater level of cooperations between end parties on the web, basically. That's it. Okay.
Wow. I applaud that. Have you talked to Elsevier or Pearson's?
I'm sorry, to whom?
It's Steve. I'm here. Elsevier or Pearson's?
No.
Yeah, I mean, from an investment perspective, right, alone, Elsevier are the largest publishers of academic papers. And Pearson's runs second. I mean, they're very large in education publishing as well, but pretty much every academic journal goes through one of the two of them. And one of the challenges they have is ensuring that the copyright on content is protected and that value moves in the direction of the copyright owner when value is appropriate. And it just seems to me that if the third party content verification was there today, they wouldn't have those problems.
That's interesting. I did not address the part around, you know, remuneration for quoted
Yeah.
identity.
Oh, well, and that's, in the decentralized world, that's what Jacob's Tree of Wally is about. It's not dealing, it's dealing with the other side of the coin that you're both on, in a sense. But to solve the problems that you're solving, I can see why DAPI is a solution for that. And that's not what Tree of Wally was about, but it is about remuneration of content. Wow. Any other questions from the floor, folks? None at all? Good Lord, you've blown everyone away. I was wondering as well about when you were talking about this. I was wondering how's this going to be different from proofmedia.io. But I can see that you're tackling somewhat of a different problem. They're using people's votes to determine truth and incentivizing them to vote, which is very different.
Yeah. Yes, this is a different paradigm because I'm not at all manipulating concepts like truth. You know, so the goal of this is accuracy. Basically, it's very simple. Someone has bought a name. Um, we want to be absolutely sure that when we display something that is related to this name, that it is this actual person or organization that has issued it. So basically, it's just accuracy. It might be fake news. It might be a government website. It is treated the same way. So.
When you have I had a question I wanted to ask you. So, what about a utility that could be used perhaps within a particular domain that can crawl through the content they have and then submit it onto this? And whilst it's doing that, look to seek to verify that the links that they're pointing to somehow work, so that the crawling would be a way of somebody bulk uploading over time a whole bunch of content they already have.
Yeah, so this is, I have a small paragraph around it. So basically, it's a very basic, you know, you just have to to get the content you already have to text format or markdown or something like that, something very light. And then basically we can have very quick program that uploads it to the blockchain and and deals with signature and creates signature for every articles. Is this what you call crawling?
Yes, that would be crawling.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. since the API works now and is live, basically we have all the toolkit available for file upload, signature creation, because the API already use signature verification. When you load the welcome website, there is a signature that is checked against the public key that is linked to the welcome website. So it's kind of the same feature. So this is why this feature will be available in the API very soon, because we already have all the toolkit. And from a publisher point of view, there also have there is quite a decent amount of work to have at least in a beta way to have this feature available.
Right. I mean, I think sort of I've worked with Elsevier, so I've worked with their IT guys, and I've published papers through Elsevier as an academic, and you know, one of the challenges as an academic producer of text that potentially has references to other papers, of course. You know, one of the challenges is that academics rarely feel that they get recognized for the contribution they've made fully. And the reason why they use Elsevier and Pearson's is because it's a very hard process to enforce that copyright. And so they basically are saying to Elsevier and Pearson's, and that's why Elsevier and Pearson's ask for copyright. They ask for copyright, and they will somehow give you some crumbs from the table. So what you've got is the possibility here of turning the existing publishing world completely on its head, and obviating any need for Elsevier and Pearson's, and putting the power back in the hands of whoever it is that wrote the paper. And that's a really powerful story on the one side. And if you spin that story differently, you can spin it so that Elsevier and Pearson's are companies that would want to invest in this technology because they'd want to add value on top of it.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting what you're adding to my presentation. So I will absolutely go into flow into what you're saying, because very soon in the API, you will have the possibility to tip any website that you are browsing at the moment. So it will be kind of just 1 second operation to tip someone with 1 rev or 2 revs. But we can think that the same feature could be available in this very pop-up. So when you have any blog that quote, for example, your paper, in this verification pop-up, you would have here a button to like tip or simply visit this website. So that's very interesting. Yes, the part around tipping and remuneration.
Yeah, and the verification is not a small issue either. It's a massive issue. If you start thinking about content, like a lot of the video content that's out there, where they have a transcript, so often presidential speeches, for instance, and potentially tweets from presidents. I think we know who I'm probably talking about. People spend an awful lot of time trying to verify what somebody said that somebody else said, and Trump does that a lot, right? He leads you there and and you can't find it. And actually having something that you can go to that is trusted in the way that this would be, being able to pick out that phrase that's quoted, and being able to see if it was verified against the source that was offered. That's a huge change in how people might look at what politicians, policymakers, and others say.
Yeah, and on another side, it's interesting because as a publisher, you have to publish the text so it can be quoted. So basically, when the very moment you do this, you have no control anymore over who will quote your content, but you have chosen to make it available for quoting. So it's also kind of responsibilize. I don't know if this verb exists, but you get the point. So people might become a bit more responsible in regards to what they quote because they simply cannot erase the content from their website anymore simply because of this, because the P is not channel based, but it is file based, and a file that is on the blockchain might never disappear from the.
Yeah, cool. Okay, any last question from anyone out there? None? Okay. Raphael, thank you very much. I like that one. Although none of it's up to me, but I do like that one. I don't know who we've got that's new on there. I don't read Chinese characters. But I've got 3 left to do. I've got XREF, I've got the ledger, and I've got the reactive game. Are any of those authors on? I'm not hearing anyone.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm late, and another Chinese guy, because his English is not good. Maybe I mean the reactive game. Maybe I can.
Yeah. So
for him.
absolutely. So hang on a sec. I'll just make a note. Right. Okay. So I hope you've got his document. I've got his document open as well. But over to you. Reactive game. All yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Cool. Are you sharing?
No,
not yet.
Not yet. Oh, I cannot share my screen.
Are you going to share the slides?
Yeah, I know, but the privacy setting tells me I cannot share my screen.
Let me just see.
Okay, this time.
Yeah,
okay.
Got it.
And the reactive game, I think, is quite simple. There are two traits which RChain has can be used. The first one is the author of these slides called Sunflower. Sunflower think that the random generator is very easy to generate in RChain. And the second is the reactiveness of the Roland, because solidity is you should active trigger the running of the smart contract. But in RChain, once the game begins, and if the target is reached, the game can the game end, and the all the bets pouring in the game can be allotted to the gamers. So he think this is a good attribute. So he's thinking the block hash of the last finalized block can be used to generate the random number, like the letters from A to F can be used for each team, and the users who bet on the one of the 6 animals, and every block can be a round. So after maybe several blocks, the game can reach the end, and they can find a winner of the bets. So I think it's that's very easy game. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the floor?
Yeah, I have a question. But I don't know much about the inner mechanism for block generation in R-node, but I was wondering if a given node can sort of trick this game by trying to create blocks and proposing a block only if, for example, if it makes a given party win. For example, if the block corresponds to A, it will propose it, but if it does not correspond to A, it will just keep it for itself and not proposing it to the network. So I'm wondering if a node can do that.
His idea is the validators cannot manipulate the block. So the last finalized block hash cannot be determined in advance.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure I have answered your question.
Yes, maybe I'm seeing it in the wrong order, but yes, I think I got it.
I'm not sure either exactly how it works, even if I myself am a validator. But I think we can actually choose like which transactions, which deploys we're gonna bundle into a block. so we can actually decide should we publish this block or not, or should we should be able to brute force it, and if you, for example, using my validator to publish your dApp and to run your dApp and deploy through my validator, I will be able to exploit this. So it's kind of depends of if you trust the validator, then your dApp is going to be safe. I mean, the validator you're deploying it to, or your users.
Actually, I'm not very clear about your idea.
Okay, I mean, user, if for example, sorry, at the same time I'm kind of trying to put the network back up with NotZipper. So basically, if you okay, can you can you repeat how the process works? People who actually staking before each block, I probably missed it.
Let's assume there are 6 animals people can be betting, and when the last finalized block's hash has A, and the team of A can move forward 1 step. If the block hash has A, B, C, D, F, then all the 6 teams can move forward 1 step.
Yeah, only the thing is that a validator is the one actually proposing the block, so it kind of depends how much you trust the validators with your dApp. That's pretty much the idea.
You first of all, you need to deploy your smart contract to the game, and then the game is running, and the block is the last finalized block can I mean, is there a way for the validators to manipulate the block hash?
Yeah, this is the question, because I guess when you deploy this contract, for example, users have 50 block, they can bet during the 50 following blocks, and then, for example, the block n plus 60 is the one that the block hash will be checked to determine the winners. So yes, so if it works this way, I'm wondering if a validator can brute force the block 60, so it makes some parties win. So that was the question.
Okay, I know for a validator, he can see the transactions deploy ID in advance, and he can decide to propose the transaction or not. But can he determine the block hash?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think we would have to see how it is coded in Rolang. Maybe we could see it clearly, or predict eventually the flows.
Yes.
But that's a good question.
I mean, given the block hash is the hash of the block, and that's completely related to the content in the block, the validator would have to manipulate the content in order to manipulate the block hash.
Yes.
Is that right?
They can just choose which deploys they're gonna put in the block and propose.
I'm just thinking reverse engineering that to bias it towards a particular block hash. That sounds to me like a seriously intensive computational issue.
Yeah, I think a block, if a validator does not like a specific block hash, with the block it has just generated, it just has to add some fake, some deploys, some empty deploys into it until the block hash matches some specific condition.
So it's proof of work comes to proof of stake. If you see what I mean.
Yeah, that's yes, it would perform the sort of proof of work stuff.
I was thinking, like, in terms of just creating random numbers, like you could also get away with just using par and kind of and utilize like the concurrency of rolling. So you can just write something like this: 1 or 2 or 3.
Yeah, that randomness is generated by the Java random libraries. Maybe validators can manipulate the randomness.
Yeah, I think you are right. If your running code is what is the term, is predictable or something like that. But yes, basically, since other validators just check the mathematical validity of the execution, I think relying on concurrency can be tricked by the validator who will propose the block. I think you are right.
Actually, I know a lot of Chinese from our Chinese community are planning to develop this kind of games based on the random numbers. So maybe we can give a good solution for the randomness generator.
Yeah, we recently created a gaming dev group in Colab. You should probably check it out. I think there we should bring the discussion around generating random numbers, because it's kind of gaming related question anyway.
Okay, I'll check it.
Okay.
If you're part of the Colab group on Discord.
Okay.
Yeah, you should definitely join.
Yes, but I think this presentation is has been. You are presenting the work of another user, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I want to share my proposal. This one.
Okay, so then we shall move on. Floor is yours again.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a break after this, and then for about half an hour, and come back. But you're the last one for the moment until the break.
Okay. This idea is come from my previous project, the token jar. Token jar is a decentralized exchange built on 0x protocol. And I'm thinking RChain should have one DEX. But for current stage, I think if we try to issue some tokens, but I think that that there's no fundamentals for useful tokens. So I think currently the best one is to issue a ETH-based token, and after this stage, maybe there will be some other tokens on our chain. Then the DEX can list those tokens. But at current stage, my plan is to issue RETH first. And the DEX can be run on be trading on the backed by the ETH and REF. How to issue the RETH? For the REV holders, the private key, the same private key can have one ETH address and one REV address. So if I deploy a smart contract, Solidity smart contract on ETH, and the same private key deploy a Roland smart contract on RChain, then once the somebody deposit ETH on the smart Solidity smart contract, the private key holders can trigger the Roland contract to issue one RETH. So the question is how to make the private key secure. And I know that this is a centralized way of dealing with this kind of technology. Maybe just like we talked on the Discord channel, maybe RChain protocol will be a solution to decentralize this process. After the issue of RETH, we can use a Roland smart contract to make the DEX. There are two roles. One is called the maker and the other is called the taker. Maker place the orders and the taker fill the orders. Maker can place buy order and can place sell order and the takers to fill the orders. The order book can be off-chain because somebody can cancel the order or modify the order. So there should be a UI page to hold the off-chain order books. So I plan to make such a UI page on my ReWallet. So we need to think of if some guy deposits the ETH and he should pay gas fee, and when the Roland smart contract is triggered, he should pay the flow fee. So I think the takers, not the makers, can pay the cost for all these transactions. And if we want to terminate all the RETH and or DEX, there should be a pause function in both of the smart contracts. Or if want to update or upgrade the versions of the smart contracts, we can pause the previous versions. That's the basic workflow for this design. It's quite simple, but I think it's relatively feasible to execute. But my question is it useful for the RChain ecosystem? Because first of all, it's very centralized. Maybe people won't trust me. Or maybe few people want to have this bridge between Ethereum and RChain. Okay, that's all for my presentation.
Questions?
I just don't know how RChain protocol can achieve a decentralized way of holding the private key. I'm not clear.
No, I think this design is, as you say, it cannot be done in a decentralized way once you have communication, like cross-blockchain communication. So basically, I think it's a great design, and if it's not for, you know, ETH Rev exchanges, if something like that is developed, it's absolutely sure that it will eventually then be used for any other form of exchanges like tokens or something else. But yeah, I think that's great. So basically, I don't have question to ask. But my thought around this is that this design can be a sort of a you know, a sort of genesis or example or a model to be then extended to other applications.
Okay, today Greg gives a presentation in Chinese WeChat group, and he has some code for a decentralized exchange Roland smart contract. I think that's very interesting. Use the Roland COM event to solve the buy orders and sell orders. It's very interesting and very simple and very efficient.
Yeah, it's the efficiency that I'm most interested in. And I'm curious to perhaps see how this might apply to any cross-border transactions. So the sort of thing that's been happening in Europe over the last about 3 years, once open banking was mandated, and what was called the PSD2 directive from Europe was mandated, all banks had to open up APIs. And that's led to a rise in attempts by various companies to provide cross-border settlement.
Yes.
And this kind of really fits into cross-border settlement using blockchain technology. I think there could be quite a lot of interest in the financial services technology investment market, which is quite hot.
And this part of the how to make the private key secure, I think maybe this can be put in the I'm not clear about the English name of. Let me check the name of the. Raspberry, yeah, Raspberry. Put maybe hardware wallet on a Raspberry hardware, and to make this part more secure.
Right. Have a look at, there's a company, I'll just put it in the chat. There's a company called VeloPay. I think the CEO is a former executive at Barclays, Barclays credit cards. And the chief technology officer is somebody that I know quite well. He's a very keen cyclist, which is why it's called VeloPay. He has quite a lot of experience using blockchain as well. And he is really known in the payments world. So I'd be curious, really curious, Dinworm, if you had a look at VeloPay to see whether you think this is something they should look at or whether this is competitive to them.
Okay.
And the reason for asking you to do that, just to give your opinion on it, is all the guys involved in these open payment things right now, they all have money. So if our aim is to, as a result of all of these workshops, our aim is to be able to go to investors and say, hey, look, not only are we a blockchain that's worth investing in, but there's an ecosystem of potential ideas, and here's one that we think you might like because you're in financial services. They might choose to then invest in that idea in some way. And from an RChain perspective, what we get is a growing, healthy ecosystem. Everyone wins. I'll look up the the VeloPay thing. Any other questions?
Yes, I had a question. So, Dimworm, you mentioned, I believe in your presentation about Rev-based tokens. So in the collab, we're creating community tokens. So
Okay.
our first one is a collab coin. We're still working on the name. So if we create a community token, a collab coin that's based on RChain, based on Rev, but it's a variation of that for our community, would we be able to use your decentralized platform as a medium of exchange to exchange this community token within our close-knit circle?
Yeah,
or how would that work?
Yeah, I think if any token issued on RChain could use this smart contract for trading. My question is how to determine the ratio between the community token and the Rev. Let the market choose the ratio.
Well, that is something that we have to figure out as well. The purpose of the community token or the collab coin is so that we have developers within the collab, and being able to sort of hire a developer to do work, to work on a website, the front end, and then with those hours of work that they work on the front end, then we pay them. They would be reimbursed with that, with a certain amount of community tokens. So as a community, we have to figure out, okay, for 1 hour of work, how many tokens is 1 hour of work worth? But this brings in an interesting dynamic where, if there's a marketplace that might be another way to help us determine what the value of a community token is in our closed circle. So yeah, the just kind of exploring the different ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, but at least it's you know, having a decentralized exchange, it helped facilitate, you know, if I have if I want to somehow, if someone wants to come into this community community of developers and they don't have any collab coins, this decentralized platform would be a way to get some. You know, it's, you know, if they you know, they have a project that they want a developer to work on, and they know that they can hire someone within the collab to do, you know, 5 hours of work. Well, they need to get their hands on some of these community tokens, and this decentralized platform could be a vehicle to help facilitate getting ownership of some of those community tokens.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, and I think it helps to, it's another tool in the toolbox of the commerce. You know, we're creating a, you know, we talked about the expanding of the ecosystem, expanding of the RChain ecosystem. So, you know, there's the greater world of RChain and Rev, but then you're going to have, you know, these smaller communities, these pockets, and how these pockets work together within their own little group. It's one thing. And then also, you know, other communities will pop up, you know, based all under on the RChain platform, and having a medium, a platform where these RChain based tokens can exchange out of one into the other. So for instance, say, you know, so we have the collab coin, and then there's the gaming coin, which is also based on the RChain platform. So I have the collab coins, but I want to get a hold of some of these gaming community coins, because that group is there. They have an expertise in gaming development, and which doesn't exist in the collab community. So I need to get out of my collab community coin and into some of these gaming coins. So having a decentralized platform to help facilitate that is helping to expand the ecosystem within this RChain and Rev ecosystem. So I see how it all sort of can play a role.
Yes.
Very good.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think just before we move on, I think it may actually be a pattern that it's the sort of pattern that a company that's doing low energy voltage trading peer-to-peer, it's a sort of pattern that they need to be able to run on top of RChain, because they'll be issuing their own coin, and they'll want to have a very specific relationship to coinage and tokens on RChain, and this would help them achieve that very easily.
Yeah, I think Raphael's ERC 11, is it Raphael's? Yeah, the 11.
Yes.
ERC 1155 token, the general purpose token interface that I think could be serve a lot of these applications.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So moving on. I don't know if we've got any other authors of ideas on the line. Are there any? It's the community ledger that's missing. So what I propose to do is, it's time for a break now anyway. So I propose taking a break until, well, roughly for 40 minutes, for 30 minutes, sorry, for 30 minutes. So coming back at 1/4 to the hour. I'll leave my screen on and I'll share my screen for now. So you could, in case anyone comes along. And then they'll see, hopefully, they'll see this. Okay, we'll see that.
Very good.
Okay, and hopefully I'm sharing my screen. Right, so any other ideas that anyone would like to raise at this point? I'm not hearing any. Okay, so to summarize then, as long as everyone can still hear me. Can you still hear me? Sign of life?
Yes, we can. We have a lot of
Good.
people on.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think that means that we've got 12 ideas. This idea here, I'll color code it as, I'll just do it as green. Ends up getting married to this one according to the author of RV 2020. So they become one. So that means there's only 11. And JavaScript to row, and I think the BPMN stuff, I think that they probably are taken as a single item as well, unless anyone begs to differ.
Well, I don't really see the relationship. You know how they are related. I know Dan was trying to combine them into a presentation, but they're really quite independent.
Ah, I know why. I know why. I need a different way of classifying. So what I need to do is I'll add something in there. Oops. Bear with me. Right, let me insert that in the right place. Okay, so this is just a classifier. So if it's if it's deemed as sort of system, useful for the system that is RChain, so part of that ecosystem, then we label it as such. So these are kind of system things, part of the portfolio that you want when you start using RChain. So it could be tooling and stuff like that. It might be that RStake is the same, potentially, but then it's sort of in the same class, I think, of as Dimworm's one, XRefDex. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to classify them as to those that sort of have external, more likely to receive external funding. So, or from a community. So not from RChain itself. And I think several of these fall into that bracket. Certainly the reactive game, and certainly that one. So they're external things that we would like to seek potentially as, or portray as, opportunities. This is why people should invest in RChain, because there are these ideas that may have an investment life of their own based on RChain. So you've got system ones, and then you've got, I'll call them co-op ones. So things that are needed for the governance of something like RChain. So we get these. So XRefDex could be seen as a system-based one along with RStake as part of the sort of patterns and ideas that people might want to leverage. So, you know, they could be open sourced or maybe they get funded, but the pattern is repeated. I'm speaking aloud here. I mean, I'm guessing here, so I'm making up as I go along just to make sure you all know. Any thoughts would be useful. The reason I'm classifying them is I don't want us to be, when we kind of try to rank things at some point, probably not today, but when we try to do the ranking, I think it's important to understand what sort of thing you're ranking so that you don't make the wrong comparison with something else. So, for example, having user stories around visual Roland process modeling and BPMN that are part of an investment deck, they're probably a tick box item from an investor kind of perspective. Yeah, they just expect you to have that stuff. And so it's kind of internal. Whereas, you know, for instance, the ones that are marked co-op, for an investor that or an interested party that wanted to sign up and support RChain because of the decentralization of RChain on and off chain, they would probably be interested to fund the voting mechanisms.
I think the voting applies to very large applications of governments for, you know, for government as well as for cooperatives.
It could do, but yeah, there's a challenge in going to something that's more of a participatory democracy than a representative democracy. You know, bear in mind that the brief for doing this was to tease out the ideas that would most likely get us the right sort of investment, the right sort of resource to be able to continue and expand on our aims and aspirations within RChain. So that's the whole reason for doing it. And so it's kind of, you know, what we'd need to do. So ignore my classification. I think I might be barking up the wrong tree. What we sort of need to do is, as members, try and figure out which of these 12 listed items, 11 if you combine Dan's with Jim's, you know, which ones we think would give us the best chance of achieving that. That's really what the voting's about. But what I kind of am tempted to do is not just vote on that basis. I would want to vote on the basis of most likely to win us some money somewhere along the line fairly soon, right? I would like to vote on the basis of most needed to achieve decentralization, which is a sort of vision goal thing for RChain. And I'd want to potentially vote on, or at least those two, and possibly, you know, which are most needed to make it easy for people to use RChain. So the sort of tooling side. So if I had those three, and then I was to rank against those three classifications, I'll put them in and demonstrate. Then if people then went around and scored them, we'd get a balanced scorecard along those three dimensions. So I guess the question to you guys is, what should those dimensions be, right? So what I'm thinking of, I'll just put some in here as a prototype. So I'm just going to remove these. But the dimensions I would be most interested in is most investable, okay? most community focused, and most needed, let's call it, well, usability. Or maybe it's adoption, you know, something like that. So I tend to score it on these three. So I might, for instance, score visual Roland quite highly here. I might say, well, for me, that gets all 10 of my marks, or, you know, out of 12. If I did it as 12, that gets my 12, right? Maybe that gets 11, and so on. It might be some, yeah, so you score that way, and then you score most community focus. So that might be 12.
Are you suggesting
be 11.
you all copy the spreadsheet?
Well, I'm just sort of playing around with, is this a good way of evaluating it? Because the spreadsheet's there, you know, and if everyone copied it and then we got all those results in, that would be and then we presented that back in a session. We convene again for another session. We give people time to score. Maybe that's a good way of scoring these ideas in a collaborative way.
Okay, the other thing we could do is we could just use the emoticon voting in Discord. I know
we could do.
A lot of people have joined here. Does anybody want to present an idea that has joined recently?
Yeah, this is John Bodine. I'm apologizing for having not gotten here earlier today, but having just jumped in and seen the presentation here, I'm not particularly sure that the idea I've got there actually scores in my book high on those three necessarily. As I had communicated with Jim earlier, it floats in the same pool as his liquid democracy. And there might be a lot of energy there that we might discuss later on. I could present it very quickly, but given time and everything, I'd be more than happy to withdraw and reduce the number of folks here and maybe pursue this down the road with other members of the community.
Well, given that Dan's suggesting that he's going to collaborate with Jim, I would. If you want to do the same, that would be cool. I mean, it's great. Three is better than one.
Right. Just to give you a short pitch, we're actually developing a cooperative here in Washington State that would provide standards as well as solutions to decision-making tools that would work across communities, whether they're decentralized or not, all based on open source and otherwise transparent technologies. It's going to require a community ledger that would track all sorts of contributions as well as takeaways on the platform. And I'd be more than happy to pursue that with with the other two ideas there. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, well, then back to this. So, the challenge before us then is how do we interact with members to rank these in some way that we can do some analysis on afterwards, and then declare a first, second, and third. Because there's rev up for stake here as well, and nowhere in the brief did it say how the judging would take place. It just hinted that such judging would take place. What I wanted to do was to ensure that the judging is actually done, certainly not by the board, but by members. Now, it doesn't have to be all members, but it would be nice to involve as many, certainly all those members that have turned up to these workshops, possibly offer it further out. So, if we're going to do that, would I be correct in thinking that you'd all like to do that? You don't just want me in a dark room just scoring these and coming up with my view. Would that be correct? Don't tell me you're going to appoint me as a dictator. I couldn't handle it.
Could we have a Roland smart contract for voting? Just send one rep from your unique address to the 12 addresses for counting.
That's one way of doing it. Depends on how quick we want to do it. You know, the end game from the board's perspective is whoever's first, second, and third. The board is basically saying we're going to try and work together and give more of our time, or direct our time in a way that we can help put together a set of collateral that can be used to raise money for RChain. That's the end game. So the voting, and we want to do it because we're a cooperative, with as many members as we can. So we wanted the ideas to come from members, and we want ideally the members to vote on those ideas to come up with the top 3, right? But rather than just come up, we could just do that. We could just say, hey, look, here we go, vote on these, top 3 win. I'm just concerned that in doing that, we will have missed an opportunity to understand more about how the community feels about what's most investable, about what's more important from a community perspective, about what's better for usability. So I guess in my mind, I'm kind of wanting to do both. Maybe I shouldn't do both. Maybe we should just do very simply, let's rank these, and we can do that on Discord easily.
We could do all 3 on Discord if we use 3 different things, like a money bag for investable, and a different symbol for community and usability.
Yeah, so the only problem with using sort of emojicons in this instance is it doesn't allow you to rank. Right? So I'm interested in the ranking specifically because, you know, I can do some data analytics on that and come up with, if we were going to pick one that was about community focus, in order to attract investors that are going to fund community focused initiatives, what would we pick?
Right.
And then, you know, so it gives me different dimensions to play with.
Right. So then each voter could do a copy of this with their rank on it, or we could use some other ranking tool to do the ranking. Oh my goodness, it's 11:01. I have another meeting coming up. I don't know how much longer we're going to be.
I think we can probably reach a conclusion in about the next 5 minutes. I think there's more to do. So we've got the recording. We kind of want to send all the recordings onto Discord and tell the membership, hey, look, you've done all the ideas. Some of us were there. We want you guys to have a look too. We're going to be constructing a way of ranking these. Watch out on the channel. It will come back to you tomorrow, and we can sort something out tomorrow.
Are you suggesting 2 rounds of ranking? In other words, we'd rank according to the 3 metrics there on the middle of the sheet, and then take those results to sort out an overall rank that we would pick the best 3 of all?
No, I think what I'd want to do is go back to the membership after the ranking exercise and give them the results.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
And say, and you know, and ask them presenting it in a data analytics fashion. This is what happened to Investable across the community. This is what happened on community focus. This is what happened on usability. These are the top 3.
Right. Okay.
So, and give that, give that sort of view back to the membership. And then I think what I want the membership to say is that out of those 9, now there may be duplication in those 9, so it may, investable, community focus, usability. Now, against just those 9, the ones that are left, we want you to rank the top 3.
Maybe each member could have like 12 points for each column, and each member would be free to give, for example, 12 points to Tree of Wally, or to give 4, 4, 4. So this way he could express his preference for one project, or hold the fact that like
that's a cumulative voting model. So you'd have 12 votes. You can give all the 12 to 1, or 10 and 2, or however you want to do it.
But for each column.
I kind of want them to rank.
Okay.
I kind of want them to rank because the analysis is considerably easier, because what you're looking for is balanced scorecard. And so you actually need people to rank 1 to 12. Now, it doesn't mean, I mean, there are some rules we can add around that. It might mean that, well, I think there's 2 that really are both my number 3 picks. And you could award them, what that'd be 10 points, both. But then what it means then is that the next one that you pick gets, drops down a level. So you don't have a 4th, you have a 5th. But I need that sort of ranking. I'll tell you what I'll do. So just conscious of time and other people have got other meetings. I'll write this up on a small paper. I will republish the spreadsheet that you see now and publish the paper onto Discord, and look out for comments coming back. I'll leave it available for comment on, which will be what we think we're going to do next and how that will work. So I'll just write up a summary of that, and then we'll see what comes back. And I'll give it a time box. It's Thursday today. I'll give it a time box of till Monday, the end of the day Monday. And then any comments I'll take on board, and then publish that and implement that process for ranking.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, and that gives you time to sort of think about it. I'll publish out the first cut by the end of tomorrow, so that you've got the weekend to think about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then is there any other items for this Zoom call that anyone wants to talk about before we go? Nothing? Okay, well, look, thank you. Thanks everyone for participating. I don't know about you guys. I mean, Dan Connolly told me last time that he found it very stimulating. I've found it incredibly stimulating. Some fantastic ideas. I'm still ringing from some of them. So I think there's a lot of great material here. And there's got to be a way that we can use it to RChain's advantage. So, well done. Pat on the backs to all of you. Stay safe. Lockdown can have its benefits in that we don't have any distractions.
Thank you.
And with that, take care. You'll hear from me soon.